Okay, now we will introduce our next three speakers. By the way, the colors of the photos were really by accident. So I thought it was really interesting because we have colored photos and then here we have black and white, but it was not planned. But I thought it was funny to share this thought. So I'll pass the message for our speakers to present. We'll have Cátia from home. So thank you, Cátia, to join, even still from home. And now I think we can pass to Luís. So go for it. You can.
Hello, everyone. I'm Luís, so I'm Design Ops for PandaDoc. And so as a group lead of Design Ops, I do every Design Ops related situation, and I also then lead the research team and copywriting. And so pretty much kind of like, as it was said before, so as the Design Ops, you end up wearing many hats and you end up having to deal with a bunch of stuff every day. So from how we work, from processes, from team and culture, from the strategy of UX operations as well, and where we're moving forward as a UX team, especially in how we grow our maturity as a team. And so pretty much it ends up being pretty busy but a lot of fun at the same time.
Thank you, Luís. We can now pass to João.
Hello, everyone. So I'm working on OutSystems, leading the design system team in product. And we have a multidisciplinary team, which is cool. So we've been doing a lot of the stuff that we talked here today. Our product that we also see the design system as a product is Fusion, our design system. And that design system is used to build the internal product. So it's an internal design system. And we work in the company in the horizontal structure, side by side with research. So it was cool to see the talk on research, and we try to avoid the overlap and make some boundaries, which I think it was one of the topics today that we kind of overlap sometimes. I think it's important to then set some boundaries, which was also a cool conversation there.
Great, thank you. And last but not least, Cátia, go for it.
Hello. First of all, thank you so much. And I'm sorry I'm not being there, but something happened here and I couldn't be there with you. So I'm Cátia. I'm Senior UX UI Designer here at Leeds. So you guys are seeing our office. It's lovely, I know. And I miss being there because I was on maternity leave. So I'm not seeing that office and visit for 9 months probably. So I need to go there. And I thought today was going to be an opportunity, but apparently not.
No pressure.
No pressure. I'm the product designer at Leeds for around 2 years. I'm being involved in loads of projects. Most of the projects I'm being involved is from design system. It's an area that I really enjoy. And I think my work overlaps a little bit. Sometimes I do design systems, sometimes I do product design, but it's something that I like. But everything I do has the time for it. So some time for design system and some time for products. So it's good. That's me.
Thank you so much. So introducing the next topic that we define here today. Sorry, he trolled me. Yeah, okay, yeah. The machine is always right? So, so technologies and tools. We also choose this for today because eventually I think these three roles are very attached to the tools that it use. Often you kind of think, okay, if you're a product designer or design ops or design system, you must have to work with Figma, you must have used, Storybook, you must have used something that's very top of mind. And I think it's very different from other IT realities, perhaps not, but at least with design more and more, the technologies and tools are more attached to what you do as a designer. And we thought it would be interesting, and of course, a little bit to talk about Figma, even though we know that not all design systems use Figma, and that's okay. But basically to talk about first which tools that we consider essential to carry out in our daily tasks, and which trends or emerging tools that we see to have most impacts in the coming years. and how Figma can have an important role by increasing effectiveness and productivity. So starting with the first one, this is a very tricky one, I think, to answer, but even you can answer like whether is what you have in place or what you would like to have. I think that's a good dilemma, right? But when we are asking which tool and technology we would like to consider essential, it's basically on every type of tasks, not only design related. So who would you like to start with?
I mean, I'd say first of all, regardless of any tooling, is know your tools. So know the tools that you actually have at your disposal in your company, and know exactly how much they cost.
Yes.
Because sooner or later that's going to come and bite you.
Yes.
And especially in the startup environment and everything. And in the past few years, there was loads of money everywhere, and everyone was rich, and we could have all the tools in the world, and we didn't even use them. And now suddenly we're all poor, and so we kind of have to be careful about how we use them and really justify their use. So I'd say that that's the first thing, and probably if you start focusing on how many tools you have and how much it costs, then you'll start realizing that you're probably the person that knows the most about how much we're actually spending in tooling.
Yes.
So I'd say that's the first one. The second one is probably before you go onto tooling. One of the first things like that tool's got to work for you. So plan it super well before you get it, because again, you may end up with more tools that you're not using that much and they're costing more and more. And so, and I kind of being Portuguese, we grew up in crisis, so
yeah.
we know how to handle the whole situation. So my approach with tooling is always I plan for it very well, and then I try to stick to the basics in terms of not, for instance, giving a practical example. Before I invest in, let's say, something complex like a research repository or something, there are plenty of tools that will do that. Probably first I'm going to, make sure that I have a really well set up table or something that I know exactly how it can work with good tagging and all of that before we actually invest in something more complex. Because we sometimes, we try to go for the Mercedes when perhaps just like getting, like a small car will be more than enough. And so it's trying first to really make sure of that use. Now, in regards to my essentials, so for me personally as design ops and for any kind of like design ops role, I would say that my essentials are first of all like the simple ones. So let's say a Notion, Coda. So in my case, was like we use Coda or Confluence or anything. That is a must-have for documentation. And again, start simple, not go overload with pages and with things, and because then everyone will get lost and no one will use it. And learn a quick tip: learn the tabling features.
Yes.
So the table features, you're gonna make some crazy stuff there. So use it, but again, don't overcomplicate it because then you're not gonna use it anymore.
Yes.
So I'll say that's for documentation, definitely that. Again, Google Workspace is your friend. Google Docs, I do a lot of processes, and I need that. And so really sticking out to those basics. And then in terms of organizing myself and my work, and I've tried. Again, I went crazy with beautiful dashboards and everything for all my tasks, and it was a failure. I stopped using it. So I would say definitely, like the simple Kanban board, like a Trello board, like even the free version of Trello will do it for you. And as a design ops, you end up not just having to focus on your team, but also you then have, you partner with all the managers from all other areas. So you have conversations with them. So you'll have, a bunch of topics and tasks to do based on that. Then you have like your strategy. Then you have your visibility of UX. Then you have, and so suddenly you have, like a bunch of different areas, and you need to control all of that. And so usually what I do is kind of like, my Trello board, which is my Kanban board of, to do, doing, done, blocked, etc. And then I create a board for each of those areas, and I put everything there. And so it's a nice and quick way to make sure that I don't forget anything, and then I know exactly how I can organize my work and keep it there.
Out of curiosity, because you mentioned Confluence, you don't use Jira? No, you were Impact.
Yes, we use it as well. So, well, actually, we don't use Confluence in my company. I use it in the past. In other
Okay.
companies,
But
we
because
do
very
use
often that because it's a Atlassian, you gotta go
Exactly.
with both.
Come with a package.
Yeah.
So in our case, so we only have Jira. We don't have Confluence, but yes, we do use it. So we're using it more on the engineering level.
Yeah.
Since we actually rely a lot. So Coda, I don't know if anyone knows Coda.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very similar to Notion for those who don't know it.
It's quite similar. It just has like some more like they call it like coding abilities. It's not necessarily coding, but it's but it kind of helps out of, for instance, like collaborating and managing work and kind of like the whole like glorified Kanban boards that you can put in there. And so at a product level, we use it to communicate a lot.
Okay, interesting. What about you?
So, tools, right? A notepad and a cool browser.
Yeah.
Just kidding, but actually something that we are always talking about is don't get too attached to the tools.
Yes.
Of course, we use Figma, but I think nowadays even more. So don't get too attached to it. Know your tools. That's a great tip. But the basics. So Jira, it's daily basis. And nowadays I'm not so much in Figma because I'm leading the team. So writing is very important. So stick to the basics. Have a Google Doc. Use your Jira. And that's basically it for the setting up. How do you do your daily work with the team, with the design system? Because design system can have I think it's an advantage and sometimes can be a challenge. That is, sometimes we are our own PMs, so you need to do your backlog, your roadmap.
Yeah.
So also work on that as much as you work on a Figma library or something else. And then, of course, we use the tools to manage our design tokens. We use Figma Studio tokens. Again, don't get too used to it.
Yeah, you never know if Photoshop will come along again. So.
You never know. You never know. We like to do the exercise of imagine that this doesn't exist. Will it impact your work?
Yeah.
Does that mean that you can't make design tokens again? No.
Yeah.
So I think it's knowing the basics of what we are doing. So creating a component should be agnostic of the tool. The same for the design tokens. So write a lot. So pick your weapon. It can be Notion, Google Doc. Write everything because making decisions on design system, it's a big part of your day-to-day. And then have a good set of tools for communication, because that is even more important than creating your basic foundation for a design system. Yes. You need to communicate with the team. We need to communicate with your users, with your product designers, your engineers. So invest in the communication. Keep it small. Like we work remotely and sometimes hybrid. So we have a lot of meetings on Zoom. Be aware of that. So try to make some videos. Atlassian now bought Loom. So record yourself, get used to it, navigate, for example, record yourself using a component from the design system. Now we have tools like Scribe that can make a bunch of interesting things with AI, where you record your screen and you do a whole onboarding that can be interesting to onboard people to the design system, how to use the design system, and also to navigate your documentation. And then something that can be more laborious is how do you give support? So have a set of tools to give support. How do you collect it? Then routing, using Jira or Asana, collect everything. It's cool. We get a bunch of messages on Slack. We love that. But don't forget to record that.
Yeah.
Keep it analyzed. You should know. So if we say you get a bunch of messages in Slack, you should have the answer. So how many? What type of questions? Is it a gap in your documentation? So invest in the support. It can be spreadsheet, it can be Jira, and utilize the automations on Slack. So yeah, we have the design part, Figma, write everything in Google Doc, decisions, and then communication. It can be Slack, Zoom, and videos that you record, basically.
That's great. What about you, Katya? As a UX UI designer, product designer, what is your tools that you think that is a must-have to work every day?
For a work today basics, like the main tools for me is Figma. But I'm loving Figma, and I know you said don't be attached to tools, but for me, please be attached to Figma because Figma is doing great work. So if you tell me you are moving to Photoshop, I'll try my best to not move in Photoshop. I'll try it. I have some tools that no, please leave this tool to me. Because it's a tool that I really like. So for work today is we use Figma at Bliss, and communication we have Slack, as João mentioned as well. We use loads of Slack to collect information because we work remotely, so we need to have a way to communicate with the team really quick. The daily basics like Google Meet is one of our day-to-day. We use it every day for our dailies. And then we have as well DevOps, which I only use it, to be honest, just to check my tasks. That's not my job to go there and put tasks. We have the perfect project managers working with us. That's their job. I have my work, so I don't mess up with their job. They don't mess up with my job. Everyone is that small area, and we use the DevOps to manage everything. They mentioned as well, the guys are there having a tool to documenting everything. So use that. Notion is a good one. You guys mentioned Coda. I didn't know about it, so I will search because it looks really nice and fun. So I think be attached to tools. I'm not completely like that. Don't be attached to tools, but that's another topic I think that we won't discuss here. I understand what Joe is saying, but at the same time, it's like not sure.
Yeah. And with this question and with the answers, I would like to just to share like a dilemma that I've been having because I joined last week on a webinar. It's called The Question. It's organized by Ben Kellerman, and he basically invites a lot of design system experts. And then each week they have a question. And one of them was about tooling, and they invited Gina from the one that is a part of the Design Tokens community. And the dilemma, and I thought it was very interesting, is that more and more, especially with design systems focus, we feel that we have to have all of these certain tools, otherwise we don't have a design system. Like, okay, we need Figma, we need Storybook, we need the Token Studio, we need Style Dictionary, we need this and that. Otherwise, we cannot have a design system. So more and more, I think we're sending a message to the market that a design system is like 100% based on the tools. And it was a good dilemma on the conversation because she worked, I don't know, from Amazon and Microsoft and so on. And she was sharing that on Amazon, they only use Google Docs to do everything. So, and it's Amazon. You think, oh, Amazon will be, super trendy and we'll have a lot of spec modern tools. And I think even bigger companies can even be trickered to convince to use all the tools because they have more restrictions regarding security and so on. And I thought it was a good dilemma, and I was going to ask you if you feel that also at the market, like a design system person more and more feels the pressure to, we must use Storybook because everyone is using this. We must use Token Studio because otherwise it won't be a serious design system, let's say. Did you felt that pressure on your daily basis, even as a design ops or product designer? Like if you don't use a certain tool, you feel like you're not following up the market, or what do you guys think? Because I thought it was very interesting dilemma that they put on the table.
So I kind of think it goes back to what João said, that you never get too attached to it. So, and I think we've all been around the block enough to know that sooner or later something better will come, or something will become the new norm. And so in that sense, I think again it's finding the thing that works well for you. So for instance, I think that example that you read, the Amazon, the Google Docs. So Amazon, they're very famous, and my company does it as well, where they're very famous for doing like these Google Docs. Word docs that are the 6 pages. And in reality, and they follow the 6 steps, which is very regimented in its way, and so it's quite hard to write them, and it actually involves a whole team of people reviewing it, editing it, all that, which is great for collaboration.
Yeah.
Google Doc is still the best for written collaboration, but for instance, like I actually by accident I recently met someone that actually works for Amazon, and their job is really to go around and do the 6 pages, and he actually told me, actually the way that we do them now, we realized that it was way too long and it was way too complicated. So what we just do is we keep it short, and then the rest is just FAQs.
Okay.
And so they just like, if you want more detail about this, go to the bottom and just look for the FAQ. And so what I think that that in the end it demonstrates is that you got to find that right thing for your needs and and for you. So if it's like the storybook example, it's also a good example where in my previous company that was at the land storybook Zero Height, because they actually end up serving different things.
Yeah.
And so they ended up going for both. But
See, do they need the 2 tools? Did they feel the pressure? I don't know, and probably just go for it because I felt they had to.
I think it's going to be departmental needs as well.
Yeah.
For an engineering, like for an engineer that will love storybook, for a designer that will much rather prefer Zero Height.
Yeah.
I think nowadays we are not so much on that era of feeling that pressure, and I think also depends on the maturity of your design system or the people you are working with. But I think the community made this transition of we use the tool doesn't use us, and sometimes I think we already get past to that. And just a parenthesis, at OutSystems, I probably be we build our own tools for design systems. So, for example, the website, the CMS for documentation, we are building it. And we had this conversation recently, looked at the market, and by the way, we use all the tools that you mentioned. And okay, should we be dependable on an external tool?
Yes.
Can we build it our own? It's a lot of work. And we went for an MVP, and we are actually building our website and the actual website as a CMS. Google Docs is involved for documentation. But I think nowadays it's just a matter of use tools a lot. Even if your company, you have access to Figma token, you have access to the Figma token studio, to Figma. Explore outside of that. For example, if you don't use a design tokens management tool, go have a look at it. For example, Supernova just launched their 2.0 version. If you are not using it on a daily basis, go there and give it a shot, because you can bring ideas from there to your daily work, even if you don't use the tool. So I think at this stage, it's interesting to use a lot of tools to bring the interesting stuff that is there, not the actual tool. And then apply it on Figma, for example. You are not sure about auto layout, open your browser, search CSS Flexbox, try some things, and then bring that knowledge to the tool that you use. So I think that's what I'm feeling now with the community, that we don't feel pressure to use tools. We are just making better use of them, and we'll have more and more powerful tools with more features, and you just make use of them. Don't get attached to it, but use them a lot. I think that's basically it.
What about you, Katya? Do you also feel this pressure, or you feel that the tools don't control, let's say?
I don't feel a lot of pressure. That's the tools, and here at least we are open like to, if there is a tool that I think is worth, talk to the teams, explore. We have that freedom, which is really good. So one thing that I say is, if there is a tool on a company that you work that you want and you really like, share that tool. Maybe it's a really good tool for the company. They don't know, they will learn, and at the end they will use it. So don't be attached to the tools that the company use, but suggest new tools as well, because tools are coming, new tools are coming, they show up. we are not everyone on the teams know all the tools on the market. So if you have some suggested, because here at this it works like that. This is a new tool, I think it works. Okay, give it a try. We'll try it and see if it works. So I don't have that, like, I always need to use this tool. So we have that.
And putting to the next question, because you also mentioned that a little bit now. So which emerging tools do you think they will be coming to the next year? So AI, it's obvious, all over, probably on our daily basis. Do you feel that it's any trends for tools, or what's your thoughts about it?
Well, I think, start with AI, it's definitely, changing how we work, and it's definitely influencing. You see that now every single tool has a new plugin, new AI plugin. I think it's going to go probably deeper than that and change the ways more that we collaborate. So I think the way that I'm seeing now in terms of trends and so on, that it's about how they communicate and collaborate with each other.
Yeah.
So, a few years ago, if we talk about before pandemic, obviously that was already, you had Miro before, and you had, I don't know if you all remember Neurally. That was, the norm of the whiteboard collaboration, then that Microsoft, that big whiteboard. That nowadays, we look at it and it's like, oh.
So they're on Microsoft Teams, like, it's there.
Exactly, it's never, we don't really use it anymore. And, that since the pandemic, these tools have, now we use Figma and all that, like, they widely improve their features and all of that. And so I think that usually accompanies any social changes or workplace changes that happen and that influence that. So on that point, I do think that, that AI is definitely the big changer right now, but perhaps at least, from my end and what I notice in the people around me, because again, when it comes to tooling, it has to, those little plugins, they're still somewhat limited. They're not.
Yeah, and sometimes regarding security, you cannot use it on the company because they're not approved.
Exactly,
blah, blah.
and we like all the version agreements and all that. But what I do notice is how it's actually changing our practices and how we work. So for instance, I consult a lot of AI for not necessarily for getting information, but if I'm writing something and I write a lot of processes, I put is there a better way that I can rephrase it, like from basic stuff like that to more complex things around, I don't want to say bounce ideas because again, it can be very, you suddenly, it's always good to know what you're talking about because AI is not going to give you the answer. It's probably going to give you something wrong. But that's where I see actually more the change right now is how that is affecting our ways of working. And on that, I think it's really going to influence around how we collaborate and how perhaps tools may communicate with each other in the workplace.
Yeah. What do you think about the latest trends?
Yeah, I'll try to separate trends in tools here. So of course, AI, I think you need to talk about AI, but so I start with the trends and without AI. So as I was saying, I think the community, the design community has evolved a lot in these years. In the design system, we are seeing something picking up now with some publication from Brad Frost, which started all the atomic design work. So, and I don't know about you, but it's working at the design system. I have thought about this. That is this notion of a global design system.
Yes. I also he also put it on the question webinar, and I actually had the chance to talk and ask him about it.
Yeah. So Gina, for instance, is always saying, "How many buttons have you designed in your life? So how many more do you want to design? Is there much to it, to a button or to input?" So this notion of a global standardization, I see it as a trend. We also see it on the design tokens work with the evolving W3C community group with the design tokens. If you work with design tokens, for sure you already have had this conversation. What's the naming structure? How do we name our tokens? Everyone is doing the same. So basically, I think now we are shifting to, okay, so let's work together and not reinventing the wheel per se. But now I'm seeing that we are moving to something concrete. So these conversations about having a global design system, the conversations that we see on the community group of the design tokens, I think that's something that will evolve the design system practice. And then the tools, going back to the first question there, what we use on a daily basis, the documentation, the making decisions. So for sure, everyone already had this of, I think we talked about this, we had a decision at some point, I can't quite remember, let me look at the docs. So those type of stuff that could be improved. Now we have it at our ends with AI. So you can, and even working with design system, I feel that is even more obvious that you have a bunch of decisions. Let's train the model with that. So you don't need to have that extra work, extra mental capacity of remembering everything. So you'll have this assistant with you. The same for the documentation. So not writing the documentation for you, but training it. And I'm saying this because at our team we have a lead content designer, so that helps a lot. But it's like a new person in the team helping you with the repetitive tasks, the memory capacity, also handling the routing if you receive a lot of feedback and a lot of questions, can help you with that. So can help you with support like we talked about. And something that I think we don't need to wait until next year, but it's happening already now. There is the generative UI. So design system is like the main candidate to make that happen in a good way. So you don't generate UI with no rules. You can apply the design system to that generative UI. So you are also helping out the product designers. So instead of being concerned on what's the spacing between this and that, you are more focused on the use cases, and the model can work with the design system and generate the UI for yourself. And as a design system, we are not creating, but we are then capturing what's common, and that's something that we do on a daily basis. Now we can make that with AI. Just to automate. So it's not having a bunch of people thinking that let's find patterns and then we need to rebuild them or build from scratch. Do everything that you already have been doing, but now thinking on, okay, I don't need to be on these repetitive tests that are more, don't require a lot of brain power from you, but require a lot of hours. And then you can invest on research like we talked here of finding the gaps. Are the users satisfied with your design system? We can work more on that, because sometimes we tend to spend more effort in the design system working on the assets, and then support, metrics. You end up without time for that. So I think now we can make use of these trends and tools to make that time. And of course, design tokens, if you want to talk with me about design tokens, we can have another discussion, but we are also seeing a bunch of new tools to manage design tokens. So I think that's very helpful, because we don't have the perfect tool right now. Even Figma is helping with that, but we are seeing a trend in there to help you manage design tokens. That sometimes can be a nightmare.
What about you, Katya? Which trends or emerging tools do you feel more specific to your daily basis?
On trends, I'm going to be really honest with you guys. I've been in maternity leave for the past month, so I'm a little bit like, what's happening in the world? I just say this. So, but what you guys told about the trends, I agree with you. Here on the tools, one thing that I say is like Figma and all the tools. I talk about Figma because it's a tool we use basically to create the designs and to work. And for example, I had, before I going on maternity, I had needed to do a job where we needed to work with teams and dark mode, and it was a pain in the ass because it took us a lot of time. And after 1 month, I've done that job. Figma release variables, and I was
Yes.
like, oh God, could it just wait like being a month later? So this the tools and update to Figma, I think Figma is getting, I know that is more, and as a designers, we always want more. So what if this have that? I know we will always want more, but I think Figma is going up to us. They are helping us getting there. But that is more tools, and on this topic, I'm a little bit, like I said, on the trends. I need to go and search more on that. But on the tools that I work, I feel like from the last year to this year, Figma increased, and I'm still updating all the new things from Figma and what is released and what is not released, what improves. So I feel like for me it was a really good tools, and I think it will start increasing and having more impact on the lives, the day-to-day for the designers. These increases will help for us to design something quicker rather than spending loads of time.
Yeah, and I think you already answered a little bit of the third question. So regarding Figma, can you see Figma helping you on a daily basis to improve the productivity and effectiveness? For instance, Katy, you were mentioning your example, like with variables. If you had variables more sooner, you would for sure improve a lot of time defining your dark mode. Do you guys have any example on how you feel that Figma can help you on this?
Well, I think it has helped, and it's still helping a lot in a few things, and even in previous experiences in the past in other companies. But first, I think probably the most recent one now is definitely dev mode that is now live and chargeable.
Yes.
It was much easier when it was free.
Yes.
Because now suddenly I have like 30 engineers that want it. But the fact is that the gains that it brought, it simplified the handoff process. Made it 1,000 times easier, and that has a lot of value. And it shows how it can help in regards to collaboration and effectiveness. The other way that that I use, at least personally, Figma in the past, and I think it's pretty helpful, is, and selfishly for design ops, kind of like in establishing design processes, use the pages as a way to replicate a structure that works, that still allows freedom for designers, because you don't want to force anyone into a workflow or anything, but something that provides a structure that if I have any stakeholder, anyone that comes onto that Figma file for any reason, which, let's be honest, they usually don't, but if they were to, in a hypothetical scenario, they would be able to find it there.
Yeah.
And this has been, and the same thing, when you think about user sessions, any concept testing sessions or anything, or user testing, having those prototypes there, everything that will give a cadence to that specific project.
Yeah.
And you will have that thing in one place. So again, I think it's, how you can leverage those tools to make them work for you. But for instance, for me in the past, and something that actually now we're changing as well in our company, is having Figma to really match the way we work.
Yeah.
I think it's time, effort, money in working with design system that's always present. And Figma, like you were saying, is hearing the community, so it's adding a lot of the features that we've been craving for. I tend to see ourselves designers sometimes looking as stock market analysts, saying, I think Figma will release this time, so we probably we won't update now. So we kind of look like analysts, and I think it's a good thing. So, for example, some people might hate us for that. We are not still using variables in our Figma libraries, a bit because we are using Figma tokens, and we need typography and so on.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the typography variables. Actually.
Don't tell our users. We are already using variables, but doing the beta testing with them in our team to make sure that when we release them, it's as easy as possible for people to use. But the main thing that I see now that Figma is helping us is that old conversation of bridging the gap between engineers and designers. I think that's no longer the conversation. We are already working together there, and we were missing some we are seeing design tools for designers, right? I think Figma position as a tool now. It's not only a design tool; it's like a tool for the company that we are working on. So it's a tool for engineers as well as for designers. I think that's a big leap that we took with Figma, and dev mode, of course, is part of that bridging the gap. I won't go into the cost of it because that's making the boundaries. I don't want to be on those conversations, although I am. So I'll leave it to design ops.
Yeah, I'm worried.
So I think that's the effort in making your life easier, making you more productive. Figma is the tool for it, and it's being that. Of course, for the design system, sometimes we can get up with the variants, the props, and so on. But I think that's for our team to be concerned. We take a lot of the complexity to make it as easy as possible then for the product designers to use and the engineers. And yes, of course, we were trying to have more features that now we have. Also for FigJam, when we want to brainstorm something, we use FigJam. It's much more free. And also for Teams ceremonies, it's being a lot of help using FigJam. You really see that the team connects differently working remotely. So also to that type of work, not only component work, but span out ideas. Let's work on information architecture. We use Figma, we use FigJam. I also have a team member here that started with a lot of interesting stuff for motion. Sometimes the tool lacks of it, but you can build stuff in Figma to have motion tokens, for example. So we spend a lot of time in Figma, although I say don't get attached to it, but it's helped a lot on this time, effort, and then we can piggyback on that in our metrics to connect with money, basically. We are saving the company.
Yeah, wonderful. I think we can now start the Q&A. I haven't seen any Q&A on the chat, but before I see someone writing on the chat, I will pass to the room here if anyone has a question.
I have several, so
okay.
I can start. So Figma releases a lot of new features and updates very regularly, and I wanted to know how you guys manage to keep up to date while still doing your work, right? Because sometimes it's hard to keep up to date with how do you use tokens, how do you use variables, how do you update the old components to all of these new features they have, and I wanted to know your input about it.
Yeah, the ladies can also answer, by the way.
I was looking at the camouflage.
But I'm the moderator. I think I can start. I totally get your dilemma. I think, for instance, when you're a design ops, you have to analyze the maturity of the relationship with Figma, like how people know the Figma, and then maybe perhaps do some internal classes or presentations, and then start slowly planning when to release them. For instance, this dilemma with variables in Design Token Studios, waiting for the variable. Maybe a lot of people are waiting for Figma to be more mature, and then eventually will go, but it's natural for people to plan. So it really depends the relationship that your users have with Figma, and then try to prepare them for the worst, let's say. Yeah. Not sure if you want to also add something.
Well, so in my case specifically, my usage of Figma varies differently than anyone, and we do have a dedicated design system that will look more onto those specific features along with the product designers. But what I would add to that is that usually we also have a relationship with an account manager from Figma that will give us all the updates, articles, everything, and it also works the other way around, where sometimes there's something that, whether if we're trying to do something that we cannot do, or there may be a possibility to do it, we just don't know how, or things like that. We usually go that way around. It's like, hey, can you help us help with this? And how can we do this? And so from that moment onwards, starts working like that. For bigger changes, so for things that are, or not necessarily bigger changes, let's put it more like more complex situations. Usually what we do is that, okay, we get the info, we get the vision that Figma has for it, and then what we do is that, with a small work group, we just try to, test it out and work on it and understand how it fits our nature.
Yeah.
That's usually how.
So you can learn from it and then implement on a wider group.
Because again, it needs to adjust to our reality and how we work. Otherwise, it may cause more confusion to everyone.
I think to follow the release cadence, I think it's just follow the release page from Figma, and that you'll have everything there. Because sometimes with social media, you have Twitter, you have LinkedIn, you have like channels. It's all the same information, but something that helps is stick just with the release, the official thing, just to they just released that, and then to get to know what's being released. Something that we try to do is we don't go right away and look at it, cluster some of those release, and then be together with the team. If you have design ops, they can work that out for you and then make it more digestible, but have chunks of release and then do some working session, trying out these new releases, how it can impact your work. Does it have impact on the design system? Do we need to do some rework or not? But I think that's it. Stick with just one place that has the release, because all the other stuff is going to be the same. Probably some confusing in a LinkedIn post or a Twitter post, and some misinformation. So stick with Figma. Figma does a great job then with the community on having YouTube videos, having Ask Me Anything sessions. So wait for those to come out, because release changelog is the first one, but give them some time to have videos, workshops, and at the same time that we are waiting for those resources, you are also giving time to group new features. So, for example, variables. I think now we can already start understanding them and not understanding them because they are tricky to understand, but start to implementing them because now we are just missing typography and some small details, and you already have good resources, so official resources. So I think that's it. The Figma official changelog, it don't fall into the pressure of I need to know this right away. I think that's it.
And that way they can fix bugs. So
give them some time to
you won't be the
stuff.
victim.
Exactly.
Because you might they release something. I have to go there in the UI to open this, and then they get a bunch of feedback, and that place changes, and I just learned something that just changed again. So I think that's it. As any product, give it some time and focus on the day-to-day work.
Can I just add something?
Of course.
Just I was hearing you speak, and I have this thought in my mind that we are just now being surprised by these tech debt concept, but engineers have been dealing with this for quite a while now. And I think that we would benefit a lot by asking how engineers are dealing with this in their day-to-day work. And sometimes the changes that they have to do are even more complex and even more impactful than what we have to do in Figma. So I would suggest reach out to engineers, see how they're dealing with it. How do they put it in their workload? How are they managing the new changes?
That seems like a really good approach.
That's
Definitely try it out.
and that's a great tip, and goes along with having this global notion of we are all working together. Engineers have exactly the same issues. They could right away jump and use layers in CSS or the new thing in vanilla extract. So it's the same thing. It's a great tip to discuss how they handle that. And sometimes they just say, don't use that.
I think it's overall going to fall in the FOMO of being always up to date with everything. I remember designers have been working for ages in updates. Websites were being built 8 years ago, and they were not amazing, but they worked, you know. So it's like assess what you have, the objectives, your team, like most of all, common sense, you know, not being tempered on how you want.
And I think something really important is to always ask the community, no matter where. There are Slack channels everywhere, Design Ops, Friends of Figma, whoever. If you don't have someone in your organization that is Design Ops, you can ask for the contact of the Figma account manager, or you can just ask Friends of Figma on your local chapter. So for example, in Portugal, you can ask us and we will get back to you with information regarding the tool if we know something. And then, so for example, now we started working with branches in my company, knowing that the feature doesn't work well, because we believe in that feature and we believe that it's going to be mature. But we had a lot of conversations with Figma before. They are in our files almost every day because they are kind of testing right now and trying out, and we are helping building this feature by showing this is not working. Then some developer goes there, checks the file. So this is possible to do, and you can help building the feature if you believe on it and you think it makes sense. Try it out. If not, it's not good to use your teams, as I see a lot of times using people as mouses in a lab, right? That just doesn't make sense. Don't frustrate people in your company if you are not sure that something is not going to work. But if you know that you are up to and to try a feature and to have the collaboration together with Figma, that's also possible to do, and it's a really nice experiment.
Yeah, and again, copying from development. Exactly, branches, right?
Yeah. I think you have, go for it.
Well, first of all, just thank you everyone for the great insightful afternoon. I wanted to ask about design ops skills and education. If you think it's just, what you know today is more traditional design education, or if you think that you do need extra skills for that role.
Thank you.
As
pessoas não nos veem, eu fico aqui de boa. Mas elas podem sentar aqui. Eu fico bem contribuída de sentar.
Yeah, so they were asking about design ops education and skills and what we would need to do. Design ops.
Well, so, I mean, it's a fairly recent practice, so, I don't think any of us studied design ops in college.
No.
But what I would say, so first, like in my case, I come from a service design background, even though, I did study product design, but then, service design. So I would say that, it starts first with the interest of kind of like, understanding, hey, there are all these problems that we need to, in a way, sort out, or we need to organize, because obviously as teams keep growing in companies, we do see that need. And so for instance, in my own personal experience, I kind of feel like I almost fell into it by accident.
Yeah.
Just like, it was there on the street and I just fell right on it. But coming from a service design background, what I saw, and usually, and I love your description when you said, about like the designer working for designers, right? So usually I say
designers,
to designer, like usually I call it like the designer designing for designers.
Yeah.
And so, coming from a service design background, it felt very similar in the sense that obviously I used to spend a lot of time as a service designer, in research and talking to, customers or users or X and Y. In design ops, you spend a lot of time talking, not necessarily to customers or users, but your team, your cross-functional peers, etc. But you're still doing the same thing, making sense of whatever is happening. Sometimes it can be a little chaotic, but then trying to make sense of it and make the things that work out. And based on that, so as with service design, that's the challenge that for me personally, as a design ops, that I felt, especially in the beginning, was that, as a service designer, usually like you go, you do your own research anywhere, your field research, etc. You collect all the findings, you generate insights, and then you go to the business, you're like, there you go, goodbye, I'm out of here. With design ops, it's like, okay, I got all of this, but then suddenly, now I also got to implement it and I got to make it work somehow. And that was the trick, I think, and like the biggest change when it comes to, looking at like more of those service designer research practices and things like it. But, at the end of the day, I think that it's really, I wouldn't necessarily say it like, I think any designer has those skills. It's around really, like with any design project that you do, like kind of like understanding the environment and trying to see how you can make it better. And then, obviously don't shoot for the moon and go iteratively making, those changes and implementations as they see fit. And also, again, be humble, be honest. Like, none of us has all the answers. The amount of things that I tried and didn't work out, it's how it works. And, you just adjust and you keep going along.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I was going around, so I didn't listen fully to the question. Which one it was?
So I was asking what kind of skills you think you should have if you work with design ops, or if it's just very much the skills that you already have.
I think being empathic is the first one, because first of all, a lot of times I'm 25, I'm really, really young, and I work with designers that are 40, 50, like they have lived there. They could be my parents basically, and I have to be very empathic of the way where they are coming from, what they have learned, and what I know, because I'm from a very, I don't know, how can I say it? I was very lucky in life. I lived in a very nice world. I was able to learn everything I wanted. It was really easy to me. And for these people, it was not. So they are a lot of times attached to things that they learned when they were back in graphic design that nobody talks about it anymore. Yeah. And I have to be very empathic about it. I think that's the first one. There is, when you work with design ops, you work with people. People have emotions. They get sick. They have kids, they have a life, and it's really sad when I see sometimes some design teams, and I have worked with that in the past, that try to measure how my designers work these hours per day, they are never sick, they work so well, and we have just this amount of sick leaves, just please stop, it might be that there is a virus and everyone is sick and then your metric is ruined. So then it just doesn't make sense, and I think that's the first one, is being empathic, understanding your user, and then it's pretty much as being as a normal designer, that you understand your user, that you understand their needs, and that you work to try to conceal the pains they are having, not solve all of them, because you can't. There is no tools to solve everyone's problem, and then you also have to be very flexible in everything you do. You cannot be very attached to everything you create. That's not possible. It's not going to work for everyone, and that's the way it is. I think that's basically it.
What I also advise is to try to understand the design maturity of your company and how you can help your company doing design ops will gain value to the company, because usually that's the way it goes. For me, I was doing in every job without even realizing that I was doing. For instance, when I was working on Vorten, I basically saw, if each one of them was working individually and the results were very different. And so you have to have a lot of sometimes initiative, vision. You see the gap and you want to propose something better. And then basically I just show up and said, I would like to propose for us to optimize the way we do banners. And we were doing 5 banners, and eventually at the end of the year we were doing 100 banners because we improved the process. So I think it's also for you to see the opportunities and the problems that you have on a company. I felt that designers, I'm not organizing well the Figma file, and maybe you can propose that and dialogue with them and see what do you think of it. Also, especially dialogue, because usually people tend to think that design ops are leads or managers and they will decide, and that's not the best approach, because you also have to have the skill of advocation, engage and have the relationship with people, because otherwise they will resist you, and you don't want that. So combining with what they said, I would also advise this, try to understand where you can add value on design and see where you can improve that in process and so on. And I think at the moment you also have some courses, and I can mention the school that I teach classes, the starter. They also have some design ops. In case you have questions, you have there, Miguel. But it's already starting to have some courses, so maybe you can also find something to keep up with. But usually I think it's all of these qualities, you have to be some sort of agile enabler and management and also designer at the same time, and all packed in one, and try to see the room to improve that and propose that. Yeah.
And I think it's a position where it's very natural. It has to come out of you. It needs to be a part of you as a person in order to be able to be design ops, in my opinion. It's not this thing that you are you can learn, you know? It's not a thing that you can learn. Most of the times the thing that comes, at least in my perspective, from what I see in my colleagues, in their life, they kind of help people somehow always. And even when I was a designer at Sketch at the time, I was already coding things on Sketch Assistants at the time was the name, to help my designers to understand if they had components that were detached. And I was an intern at the time, but I just love to help people, and I think that's kind of natural. If you feel that, probably you will be a very good design ops person.
Touche.
I think just to add as well, because one of the things, and we were just talking about it before with Mufala there, as there's also like a strategic side of things. So you got to be a bit of a diplomat.
Yes.
With your peers, with leadership, with everyone, because you're going to be playing ball all the time.
Yes.
Because they will want this, and then you're going to go negotiate for that, and then they're going to be able to do that. So there is that. And then there comes the moment, and as designers, we all know, for instance, like, let's say that we're researching something. It's very easy to get lost in there. And like, now I'm like, I have so many things, so many ways to go, and I don't know what to do. Same thing with design ops. It's easy to get lost. So it's easy, like to not try to tackle everything. And like, it's very, easy to fall into that trap of trying to fix everything at the same time. That's never going to happen.
Everything.
Everything is
never
burning.
gonna Yep. It's never going to happen. And then it's also, there is a moment as well where, for instance, like, if you're doing collaborative things, especially with designers, with big things. So, and by designers, I don't mean necessarily designers per the role, but more in terms of quantity. It's a lot of, usually like in my case, like 30 people or something. It's very hard if you're working collaboratively to come to decisions. And there comes a moment where you need to put your foot down and you make that decision for everyone.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
democracy is hard.
Yep. It's never going to go through.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I will now read a question from Ruth from home. So, rewinding a bit, apart from a good organization in terms of task boards, what do you guys recommend to improve the actual day-to-day process of a solo UX UI, which communicates exclusive with devs and stakeholders, but not really with other designers? Knowing that tools like Figma increasingly help a lot from a technical standpoint, what do you do to fight the occasional dismotivation and also to feed your brain with different views and ideas? So I think there's two questions. The first one is, how do you communicate with devs and stakeholders, I think? And the other one is how we brainstorm, for what I took. I think it's the same question. Okay, sorry. I felt there were two. Okay, basically what you do when you work alone. To sum up, thank you.
Yeah, first of all, resign. It's
Yeah,
very
that's
hard
the
to
first
work
thing
alone.
Just write my letter and say goodbye.
Come on, it's very common to be the solo designer in a team full of other roles. It's very hard. So communicating with both has one thing in common. Bring them to your process so they understand what you are doing and why it's important what you are doing. That's one way of keyword advocate for your work. And try to understand their points of view as well. So then again, as a designer, it's important for you to have some notion on what the people you work with do and what are their motivations, what are their contributions, and how you can better work with them. So, for example, you mentioned stakeholders, right? So what are they responsible for? How are they going to work with you? What can you bring to the table? It's very important to have that in mind. So engineers, developers, how are they coding? Do you know the language? Can you help with that? Because sometimes they have some questions that for designers might be super simple, like what's the margin of this component in this layout?
Especially if they are full stack and they don't like the front end.
Exactly, super common. Then again, so it's important for you to have, then again, empathy for the people that you work with, and you have to be flexible as well.
Yeah, I didn't get it if it's a solo designer working in a company or a freelance.
Oh, you also have that.
Yeah.
I think it's a solo one in a company.
In a company, okay. But I think my thoughts apply the same. So I think something important that I felt on the question is, how do you keep the motivation there So thinking on the company, you can try to break those silos. So not feeling that you are isolated. Just grab some time with your engineers, with your developers, even stakeholders, or just someone in the company, really. And you can work. You can talk about stuff that it's not directly about work, but making those connections step by step can help on that motivation part. Being on these meetups, I think it's also a huge thing that you can do for the motivation, and actually be curious on the other practices and how the company works, and trying to understand why you are in that situation and how it can work out for you. When you find yourself with that situation, those questions, try to situate yourself in the company and, okay, how can I get the most out of it for me? To what motivates me? And I think the first tip that I was talking about is already that 80-20 of, like, let me just grab some time, some coffee talk with someone that I don't even work directly. Just let's have a chat. And I think that's a huge bump on the motivation, and you even might end up like loving being a solo designer, because it's a thing that you can do.
Or in case you feel too much solo, you should do a business case on why you should have a colleague.
Or maybe try to find someone that is in the same situation, and then try to understand how they overcome it.
Yes.
I would also add there as well that, being in a sole position sometimes gives you a certain, I don't want to call it power, but a certain, perspective where you can also kind of like establish the rules for certain things. So, defining like rules obviously doesn't work for everything, and it does require some investment from your end in terms of preparing those things. But, defining like certain rules of engagement, for instance, if it's, if we're talking about specifics, repetitive tasks or something, define how long like they're going to take, like a turnaround time for that or something that will also give you some structure for yourself, and that avoids you being pulled in every direction from everyone. If we're talking about, for instance, like with stakeholders, let's say that you have to present things or, discuss your things, try to make, maybe like some basic templates or something that you already have pre-made, so that you just fill in the gaps. It doesn't take a lot of your time having to prep all that work, and it all, and it also gives them some structure, and they kind of like sets the expectation of what they can expect from you. And then ultimately going back to what Marcia said, and also what Rita said as well, was that part of, building empathy. And I think one of the best, as a designer, I don't know if you're doing research yourself and if you're speaking to users and all of that, but that goes a long way. Recording those sessions, bringing them, inviting them over. Hey, come and, look at this, like me interviewing this person, all that. Those things, they build a lot of empathy with stakeholders, with engineers, with everyone, because suddenly they don't challenge you that much on your rationale around things.
Absolutely. I wanted to pick up on that as well, because what I see a lot is people having this misunderstanding with empathy and involving other people in other roles in their work, with over-explaining what they are doing and trying to validate. I spent this amount of time doing this. No, bring them so they can watch how you do that, so they can learn. Maybe you have a peer that it's not a designer, but they want to protect your work in the environment that you work in. It's very important to distinguish that.
Okay, we already passed the time. We were ahead, and now we passed the time. That's perfectly normal in this type of events. I think we can close, and thank you so much at home for all that participate, and thank you also to our speakers that accept, of course, that accept our invitation. It was really, really good talk. We'd also like to thank Isabella, that even though it's sick, helped us a lot to organize this event. Thank you so much, Isabella.
Raquel, you are maravilhosa, Raquel. Gorgeous. Thank you very much. This was our biggest event. There's a lot of people there. There's a lot of people online. So thank you very much for organizing everything, the speakers, for bringing so many topics and things. Probably our next event will be in June. I don't know, but let's see. But thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for people that join us here in person.